And we are live on Facebook. Hi, and greetings, champion parents. Welcome back to Mommy Talk. Come on in and share. You want to help me, Miss Lisa?
Share.
I need something like, yeah. Make sure you share our show to your timeline so that we can be effective and inspire other parents. So please take a moment to share with your family and friends on your social media platforms. We also invite you to engage with us this evening and chime in on the chat. Feel free to leave a question and or comment, or you can also leave a shout out. As always, we are here to share information and resources to inspire positive parental engagement. We are real, relatable, and right on time. All right. With Dr. Pert in her absence, Miss Lisa, and myself, Miss April. And today we have with us champion father, champion husband, champion community leader, Mr. Frank McGee.
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us. But real quick, let me give a fun fact before we get into interviewing Mr. McGee. It's 'tis the season to be physically responsible. That is saving where you can. Presentation is everything. You want to get your children to eat healthier, rinse those grapes off, pluck them stems, and put them in a nice bowl or container. Easy access sugars. Don't be afraid to doctor up the leftovers. Turkey quesadillas. Oh, that's good. Yep, turkey quesadillas taste is pretty good. And of course, you can purchase your flavored smoothies and sea moss from Vitamin and Love from Miss Lisa. I got to put the order in too. I'm going to put an order in for my mom.
Okay. We got you. We will take care of you. So thank you so much, Miss April, for that awesome introduction. And I really have to just mimic these sentiments. I have been knowing Mr. McGee for a couple of years, and everything champion father. I've always heard you highlight and celebrate your daughter, your wife, and your students. I mean, you are just a celebrating type of person. You are a motivator. You are a person who empowers. And I'm sure a lot of our students could attest to all of this. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking so much because, like I said, I can think about, I can think of a lot of awesome things to say about
you. It's really good that you have a lot of awesome things to say about Mr. McGee.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am so humbled by that. I really am.
Let me
it's been more than a couple of years. I believe it's been almost 10.
Yes, it has. And let me say this. There was a time like I may encounter a student that may not be having a good day, good year, whatever. And I'll say, you know what, Mr. McGee, because I've seen students change, from the beginning to the end. But like I said, I'm going to just stop talking for a minute because, like I said, I'll just take over. So if we could just humbly ask you, first of all, welcome and thank you for agreeing to come chat with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah. So who is Mr. McGee? Who is Frank McGee?
Frank McGee. Well, let's go back a ways. Basically, I got into doing what I do now because of a key interest in getting an internship out of the way when I was in undergrad. And I was at Wayne State at the time, and I was working the midnight shift at UPS trying to make ends meet. It's what students do. And I found an opportunity to at least do an internship at the Detroit Urban League and had a very powerful interview from a guy named Greg Hicks, who was the vice president of programs. And to this day, I remember the one question he asked me. There were the usual interview questions, as you already know. But there was one question he asked me that caught me off guard. What is your relationship like with your father? And yeah, that's not a typical interview question.
No, it's not.
People may have some concerns about that, but there was a legitimate reason why he asked that question, because of the level of what would be required, if you will, to do the work that he was going to propose to me. And I recall he had his assistant there, and she looked like, whoa, you're asking him a personal question.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to ask. Like, how did you feel when
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was like 19, yeah, I'm dating myself a little bit, 1980, like the spring of 1987. And here I was listening to him when he asked a question, and I listened, and how do I respond? Because my father and I did not have a very good relationship, despite my best effort. And just out of full disclosure, I know he was going through some tough times personally. I also know our family was going through some challenging issues. There were six kids, and the oldest four were starting to come of age. I was one of the group of four that was coming of age. And so my father, even though he was a nurse anesthetist, he took care of taking care of the house and paying things, but basically the role of passing on from one generation to another was not his strength. And I realized that there was good news with that. I was able to get the support from Mr. Brown, who was the postman. And he had a big afro. He had his little cap he kept to the side, and he always encouraged me about school. Now, this is like the 70s when I was a kid, and seeing how a Black man was finally doing something impressed me. But I wanted to learn more from my father, naturally, because I'm a junior. He was a senior, and he was into his work, really focused on that. And I know he and my mother were going through some tough times. Eventually, they did split. But what was most important was for her to see that I was getting the support I needed as a young man. And she pushed him on that very hard. I always wanted to have, like, can we have breakfast or lunch or whatever? And I only had that happen one time. And so quite naturally, it was pretty tough for me. Now, you see where I'm going with this, because of what with this question, I shared full disclosure, what I was trying to do to move forward. He says, I want you to consider working in our youth program on the East Side. It's a dropout prevention program. And he said, Mr. McGee, basically, I think you'd be a good fit as an intern there, but we'll see if you want to stick it out, if we can in fact employ you. Now that was like music to my ears as a college student, like, oh, wow,
Right.
And so sitting down, having talked to him, he explained the schools. There are 2 middle schools there that we were working with, and several young people that the program really tried to reach so they can be able to get in their right grade or get their grades up. It was a dropout prevention program.
Okay.
So, as you already know, it was more than just helping the kids get their grades up. You had to mentor them. You had to work with them consistently. And if you made a promise, you got to do your best to keep it. And I had never had that experience before. The first week, it was kind of rocky for me. I was just an intern. It was rocky, and naturally they didn't have much to say. But I also had a teacher who was also in that classroom, and she worked on being able to control that class. Keep in mind that this typical student in that class was 1 or 2 grades behind. So this is it was a new project that was started in New Orleans, and they urbanly took that model and brought it to Detroit. The person who helped create that model, I still have contact to this day. Her name is Sue Hamilton Smith. Okay. And she had worked in the streets of Detroit right after the riots. So it was a powerful connection there. And it helped me to really see how relationships should be valued.
Yeah.
So I ended up learning about mentoring. I was the one that volunteered extra hours. I didn't have to do that. I made myself available on Saturdays while going to school. And so it really intrigued some of my students because I made myself available. And they could see the sincerity, because I never talked as if I knew everything. Because I knew I had never been in that environment before. Crack cocaine was decimating the neighborhood, but it was a beautiful neighborhood. This is Iroquois and just south of Gratiot, and they called it the Inner City Subcenter. I learned so much in that brief time, which allowed me to move on to take that job at the Urban League, and I stayed there in that capacity up until I moved to another program called Mayor Responsibility. It was more political, and because of the chances we took in working with all male setting, trying to help these young former gang members to turn things around. And I learned even more because I began to I really worked on listening skills. If you call yourself working with young people, you gotta sit there and listen. Don't just blow it off. There are certain words they use, especially when they don't like me or they don't trust me.
I'm sorry. I just want to kind of add for a second, because you're saying a lot of things in there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not in a bad way. No, not at all. But I think that just for our listeners, because we're talking about community, and you there's so many important aspects of the community. You know, it's not a one size fits all. You know, and there's so much opportunity. Like, I don't know if that's a good word. Sometimes they say opportunity is a bad word, but it's so much opportunity, you know, in the city, in these communities, for people with their expertise to come in and mentor. You know, you talked about it. One instance, there was, you know, the issue, maybe not issue, but working with kids and their fathers, because you can relate to them because of how your relationship was.
Absolutely.
And that question, you know, that question was kind of like I don't know, like a Jesus moment or something, you know, because you were put on the spot, you know. And that's another thing, when we're doing things that's so great, you know, we're not always prepared. You know, sometimes you gotta.
I never was.
No.
Well,
yeah.
not to prepare. When you're working and you're helping others, it helps heal things that you have going on. So I just feel like them putting you on the spot, it helps you reflect and put your relationship with in a better perspective and help you grow from that. And I just know how powerful that would have been. Right. And then I also like how Miss Lisa, you know, we're always working in the community and we're trying to build the community. And then I also like what you were saying, Mr. McGee, about we need to make sure we listen to our children.
We got to listen to them.
We got to listen. We can't overtalk, because what they have to say is important and they're individuals. Yes. And like you said, Miss Lisa, no one size fit all, but yeah.
Right.
And thank you for
that question. But that question links up to with Mr. Hicks. It links up to why I really sat down and really listened, because I knew what I needed coming up, I needed to pass on to them. As organic as that is, that really made difference for a lot of those youth, because as you might recall, there was a drug gang in that area and ran by the Curry brothers. I had a nephew of theirs. Mm-hmm. And so I really, really took it up another notch, because he was 2 grades behind. We successfully got him out of high school.
Wow.
And so that was a major success, but he really had the issue of trust, and it was blown. And I had to work on that with him and make it clear that I'm not giving up on you.
That's right.
At the same time, I also had to deal with the grief of losing a student. I had never been in a situation when one of my kids was killed. And that was by the time he was supposed to be in the 8th grade, and I had never had that experience before. So I had to get used to that because
it's hard as a teacher, perspective, losing one of your students. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's you know, you think you'd be like, okay, you not say you get used to people dying. I'm not saying
no,
that.
You don't.
You would get used to it, but you don't. You just be like, oh my God. Even when students are, you know, they've graduated and you hear about their unfortunate past, and it just affects you. It just hits you. Sometimes I know with me, I get so emotional. Sometimes I wasn't able to go to the funeral. I reached out to the parent, but it's just, I don't know. It was just a lot for me losing a student.
Yeah.
And you imagine I was about 24, 20, not even 25 yet. Mm-hmm. And I was struggling with that for a while. Do I want to really do this? Mm-hmm. And I decided to by the time that I left at the Urban League, I probably had lost about another 6 more because of the crack cocaine epidemic. And they weren't even in high school yet. So this is, I realized, I looked at this from a different perspective. If we're going to help our young Black men, we have to help them adapt to the challenges that they see, not only in the community, but in our society. And that's why I have a strong belief that we have to address some of our issues with regard to mental health. That is so important. And the issue of not being able to talk to people and get the support they need because of how they feel about it, and the worry of how others would treat them is a big deal for them, for our young boys and young men, and it carries on into adulthood.
Yeah. So where did you go to school, Mr. McGee? High school and then college?
I went to Cass Tech.
Okay.
And then I went to Wayne State University. And
I say that about Cass Tech because my son graduated from Cass Tech. And listen, when I went to their graduation, like, that's why y'all act the way y'all do. You know what they say at graduation? They say it's two people in the world. Those people who graduated from Cass Tech and those people who wanted to graduate from Cass Tech. I'm like, that's why they act like that.
I'm telling you, I had a great teacher who became mentors. I mean, I had a cool counselor, school counselor, a little weird at times, but he was pretty cool. But I'm dating myself. We're going way back. But I can tell you right now, nobody knew who I was at Cass Tech. Nobody. I was one of probably about 7,000 or 8,000 kids in that big building. So, but the experience helped me to prepare for Wayne State. You know, and I think when a student graduates from high school, first day of college is something else. All of a sudden, you're walking down a sidewalk and you look up, and a mass of humanity is coming to you. All these people who don't look like you, who don't talk like you, and all of a sudden you had to adapt to that. And that gave me an idea, some other ideas which I'll share down the road here momentarily. But it's important. It's important that we be there to help them as they transition, as they deal with grief or family tragedy, and as they learn and cope.
Yeah.
I think, Lisa, you do a good job with your students with that as well.
Thank you.
She's awesome. She's awesome. Let me give a shout out to a few of our viewers. Of course, we have cousin Clinton. He said, "Hey, ladies." Then we have our champion mom, Dorothy Morton. She says, "Hi, everyone, and God bless you all." Then we have Harriet Bryant. She's excited to be a part of our audience. She had a couple of technical issues, but we got her. The last one she was trying to get on, but we got her in. And then we have Brett Benson, who's tuning in. And then Shannon Lewis Person. Yeah, she said one of our points are very important.
Yeah. All right, you got the team.
Yeah.
We need more parents come by, the better. I like that.
Yes. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to put a question in the chat if you have a question you want to ask Mr. McGee or one of us. And I also ask that we continue to pray for Dr. Pert. She's doing fine, but
under the weather.
Yep, that champion parenting goes here and it goes out there. So so yes, definitely keep her in prayer. Yeah. So about Cass Tech, my daughter, she's a student there. So I'll give you guys a little kudos too. But yeah, that thing is the two people in the world. Yeah. Okay. Next.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I can talk about the experience, but I'm just as humble as could be. I was able to graduate. I was happy about that.
And honestly,
more importantly, I was able to meet a lot of good people who were very supportive.
Yeah. And a lot of people that I know from Cass Tech, I mean, we make jokes and everything, but I know a lot of people in there, and most of the people I know are very humble and beautiful people. So, and it's a DPS, school. So, hey, we got to give them kudos.
That's right.
Okay, so listen though. So as a champion parent, as a champion husband, and how does your family fit into your ideas about the community and what you do with the community?
To do the type of work required, to be passionate, to get in there, you're gonna have to have a conversation with your mate or your significant other. And I learned a lot from the experience because of that, because I had to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure here, y'all. I had to, I'm 23, 24. I wasn't married yet, but I got married at 27. But before that, the person who I was going to marry, she and I broke up. And it had a lot of reasons of just due to adjusting to a workload that I never thought I'd have.
Mm-hmm.
And also being honest with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Can I really carry out what I want to carry out and raise a potential family or have a relationship? And I had to do some self-reflection as well. I don't know. At that time, I was scared. Fear is something, and I was dealing with kids who were getting killed and knocked off left and right. I mean, that's horrible. But once I was able to get the support I needed, and when working with my wife, I surprised her and asked her hand in marriage. And then in 1990 and then in 1993, we had a wonderful, beautiful daughter who is now a graduate of Eastern Michigan University. Yes, she is. That's right. And we can clap on that because we got to applaud our accomplishments as a community. That's right. We got to do that. And then she graduated, dealt with the same struggles I did in school, but she also dealt with the issue of racism for the first time, not just from a movie, but in terms of getting a job. And I respected what she learned from that because because she was able to deal with the fact of reflect on what we had talked to her about. And so over the years, as the challenges grew, we came together as a family. My daughter joined the program when she was 7, 8 years old, but we only took teenagers. But yeah, I had to make it. She wanted to be a part of what we were doing, so naturally, she couldn't be involved in all the activities. But she wanted to come to the major events, and I said, "You're an honorary member," and she took pride in being able to help a lot of girls, and also took pride in being able to write a lot of blogs. At that time, blog writing was really, really popular, and she took that. She was passionate about that, and turned out to be a very good writer.
Yeah. And I want to, so I hear you talk about community and exposure for your kids. We as champion parents, we have to make sure that our kids have a sense of community, that they understand the workings of the community. We have to expose them. And just listening to you talk about your daughter and just what she's doing, that stuff groomed her, by you taking her. I laugh with people laugh sometimes, but I'll take my kids to every meeting I have to go to. They're just, it is what it is, but I have had to take them to a lot of meetings. But anyway, I'm sorry. So I'm kind of,
that's a good thing.
Thoughts going on in your head, and it's like, and you're so excited, about just sharing, good information,
Because our children are embedded in our lives. Our children as parents, mothers and dad, they're embedded in our lives. And sometimes they have to join us on meetings. We got them sitting to the side with a tablet now, or their pen and paper back in the day when my sons were younger. So I can understand what you're saying, Miss Lisa.
Let me ask you a question. Really, both of you. You live on the southeast side, right, Lisa?
Yes.
And you live west. Give me one community asset that you think is really cool for the community in which you live.
Well, I really like that we have a community involvement. I'm in the Winship community. So we have like an app where we're communicating with each other, letting each other know what's going on, sharing resources. So I think it's more so of a community, because we used to have meetings. I never attended a meeting, but I was going to, but this COVID happened. But I just like the sense of community, that we're always sharing and, being, making people aware of what's going on if, some incident happened. So I just appreciate my community.
Ms. Card?
And I'm going to add to that. I think the community assets would be definitely communication. We as well, we have I can't think of the name of the app, but it's the same kind of thing where we can kind of communicate about things that are going around in the larger community. And then I also stay like in a subdivision. So even in our subdivision, we have a platform. I can't think of the name of it. That lets you know I haven't been on it in a while.
It's okay.
But it's a very good it's a good communication tool. But the larger one, I believe that's the Jefferson Connor community. I've actually, and I just started going, but I've been to a few of their meetings on Zoom, and they're very informative. But I love it because you get to know people who are either trying to step up in a community or others who are already doing things in a community. And I also try to participate a little bit with Indian Village because they're not that far away. And I like to know, this whole area, I like to know what's going on in the area. So definitely tools of communication.
A parent has to look at and take stock of what is doable in the neighborhood or on the block. And if you can squeeze in there the residents who live around you, who look after your house, who talk to you about resources, if you can look at, take stock in the businesses that are there, even if it's a gas station that really gives out candy to the kids, or just as important, a place where you know where you can get your groceries. You might have to extend that community a little further in our city sometimes to get there, but you get there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That puts you at ease. And I asked that question for a reason. I can tell you that I've been fortunate to meet someone who used to be a principal of a elementary school less than 3 blocks away from me. And this is an Italian American woman who is still walking around at 95, 94, cutting her grass like nothing. It shows the resiliency of what we're talking about. We have to be resilient while we acquire resources to carry out our objectives. Every neighborhood is different. We have to have what we do in our neighborhood, even if it's cutting the grass, basically defines our niche or defines who we are. And so there are, you mentioned Jefferson Chalmers area. I did some work over there, grad school work over there, and basically the students there are committed. They have probably about 25, 30 students who are committed to doing what they can to help their neighborhood. And there is a church, there is a Connor Creek organization. The guy there is about 95, 94 years old, and the kids love him. But they see him as a strong connection to the past, and he has figured out a way to shape their perspective on how we treat each other as African-American men and women. Not a lecture, but more just as example. And they use his words with each other to convey that belief. That's when I knew I had something. It's called a critical pedagogy. Sorry for the fancy word. Okay. You know how to identify issues in the community because it's part of the cultural aspect of who we are as African people. That's huge. And so I was fascinated. They were using words that would eventually remind me, as I did to look at, as I was looking at it, it would remind me of the words that my students used in the Youth Initiatives Project, which is the name of my program. Okay. So that's why once you get to that level where students are basically carrying out who we are culturally, sometimes spiritually, without prodding and pushing, that says something about the impact you made in their life.
Yes. We have a question from a viewer. They said, what do you think about the mayor and governor exonerating different people felonies? She said, I think that's a good position because a lot of our young men end up having misdemeanors and can't find a job due to their felonies. And she also says, kudos to Mr. McGee for being an example of a positive, educated man. So she said kudos, but she's asked also, Harriet Bryant asks, what do you think about the exoneration of the different felonies?
Yeah, we have got to address the judicial system in our country, and we got to be passionate about that. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of young men who needed some help to avoid. I was fortunate enough to get to them before they got incarcerated. Some I could not reach, but I was able to advocate on their behalf, mm-hmm. so that they were able to, their sentence would be shorter. And that's really, that stays with our young men for years to come. Mm-hmm. Because when you coach them on issues that will normally hold them back, mm-hmm. and those issues might be just going through tough times, wanting to be with their family, you're ready to reach out to them and support them, they will never forget you. And that's why I mentioned one of my students earlier, a former student from years ago, who part of the Curry gang, Curry family, not a gang, excuse me, the Curry family. Mm-hmm. Just because of what his family was going through, this young man needed support and love. And he could have gone the wrong way, but he didn't. And so he made a bet with me when he graduated, when he left middle school. Mm-hmm. He said, when I see you again, McGee, I'm going to be on my way. And I'm going to tell you, I'm still alive. And it turned out, I ran into him when he was in his early 20s, honked the horn, we were at the traffic light. Hey, McGee, remember me? And I looked, I was shocked. Car was okay. He didn't mind finishing it up, as long as it had 4 wheels. But the point, what got me is what he said. Remember what I told you? I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. The reason why he kept saying that was because of all those young guys we lost back in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. And he could have been one of them, but he listened. And so that's why we had to do what we can. If you could we can make changes in our judicial system to help these young men and form those partnerships. And that's when the power of parenthood comes in. Yeah. We need parents to really lay down a real strong, a heavy support system for programs that help our kids not just get jobs, but acquire skills needed to keep jobs.
Yes, absolutely. And so with that being said, we know we're still going through this pandemic. We're going through just try this new way of living, and so how has it been either good or bad for, and I don't know if I'm asking the right way, but how has it either been good or bad for what you do with the kids, like with your connections? Have you saw newer opportunities, or has it really put a damper on how you communicate and reach out to the youth?
It has brought some changes. Yes, there was a time you could take them in your car or on the van, and you were good. But COVID-19 has changed a lot of that, and so we have to think outside the box. And Zoom, like now. Zoom is a tool for that. We have to look at resources, a system with resources, so they can acquire a laptop. And in many cases, they can use their phones, whether it's an iPhone or what have you, as well, because now work is done at home, online, and so you have to inspire them and keep them motivated, because when you're at home, what happens? You relax, you chill. Yeah. Even I had to remain motivated as well, because if I'm not, I could just say, well, I'm going to sit back here and drink some iced tea and watch TV. I can't do that if I have an academic or personal goal in mind. And so that's the key. And then the other adjustment is providing resources for our parents. Yes. So we see an opportunity with this pandemic. It's not just a child that we're reaching. We're reaching the family. Yes. And so if there's opportunities to obtain food or resources, usually I put that on my page. Yeah. And I try to get, as soon as I get word about an employment opportunity, no matter how old they are, I make sure my youth and their parents find out about it. It's on my page. Yeah. And I'm not bragging, but I have over what 1,100 people who follow me just for that reason.
Yeah.
And those connections are important.
Yes, they are.
It also creates an opportunity for to have people have discussions on my page. I don't have to even look at that. They can sit there and talk about issues about whether it's politics or employment opportunities. I think several of my youth were able to get employment, especially at Chrysler, because they paid attention to my page.
Yeah. So I want to reiterate a few words again. Community, what do we say? Exposure, connections, making connections, building relationships. So I just wanted to reiterate those things again, and thank you for being the giver of those things. So what's the most, and you've covered a lot, but I'm going to ask you specifically, what's the most rewarding aspect about what you do?
When I watch a kid, a young adult, get that degree or get through a program, if they call me at the last minute, say, "Are you going to be there? Can you make that work?" I've acted respectfully on behalf of the families if they could not make it, not because they didn't care about what was happening. But basically, if they took the day off, their hourly, that would make a bigger hit. But they asked me to represent the family. Now that's a humbling experience. That's a powerful experience. And so just having that opportunity, I try to go the extra mile. Even if I take those photographs, I do anything a parent has to do. And that didn't just happen at Osborne, it happened at another school. I think U Prep High School had a couple of kids there. I went to their ceremonies. It is a powerful experience when a family requests or asks you to represent them at the event.
Yeah, it is. You'd be like, "Oh, you thought of me to invite me?" Yeah.
Yeah, you can't take that. You can't take that lightly. I'm telling you, that humbles me a lot. And so I had to end up being the storyteller to talk about what happened and all that. And I've done that over the years.
Speaking of Mr. McGee, I'm liking this question from Dana Hatch, which is something many parents probably struggle with. But how can parents find mentors for children?
That is a major challenge I've seen, and especially during this COVID-19 time.
Yes.
We knew, and this is a community. I'm going to answer the question from a community perspective. A community can put together an event where there are mentors already doing something in the neighborhood, a sit-down event, using, of course, safe distance practices. So that person could be able to have a conversation. It could be at tables where they're apart, like and that 6 feet distance is there. They have their masks on, but they have that conversation with people who are already in their neighborhood. And I think, that when I asked earlier about the assets in the community, it's the people themselves that really make a difference. You see them, if you get to know them, they then can be able to do what's necessary. There may be faith-based groups in the area, which is something that I think they could do. If they're stakeholders, they should be asked by the community, "We want you to represent and come in and have some of your members to sit in and talk to our young men or young women about these issues that they go through, and maybe do it once a month or once every other month. But we want to do it where they look forward to coming, not just for the food, but for the establishing those relationships. And I think that's a good start right there. Then there's the Boys and Girls, the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program in Detroit. They do have a very good program. I can vouch for them. And there's a contact person. I wish I had her number, but her name is Beth O'Connor, and she would be a good reference for opportunities such as this.
We can always go back to this chat and put, if we can get that information, we can always.
You said Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Detroit?
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah. So how?
Now there.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
there is the Boys and Girls Club. They do some great things, but things have happened with the organization, not organization, but how they engage in youth with youth as well. So a guy, there are several throughout the city. I just can't give you a location right now. I apologize, but they could definitely give a good start. Now, there is one thing to look at very carefully with these programs is you got to look at how they engage our youth.
Oh yeah.
And and look at it from perspective of cultural responsiveness. You know, we all come from different backgrounds, but we got to bring who we are as Black people into the space that we serve our community, especially at these centers involving young people, because even though we have our differences as Black people, we also need to understand that we have to represent the future. I mean, prepare the students for the future. So if they're in that program, we have to be able to pass on some skills to our young men and our young women so they can be able to step up. And so that mentoring comes in. The Police Athletic League is doing some dope stuff. I'm telling you, they're doing some great stuff with those kids. But their location is
familiar with their police department.
Pardon me?
I was saying that's another great idea for champion parents. Get familiar with your local police department. There's nothing wrong with getting to know the people at the fire station. I mean, I look at or think about past times where you see people walking through villages and everybody's kind of friendly. And yeah, I'm thinking of Christmas movies.
Even your local churches or even your local gas station. I think it's important to be familiar with your gas station person. I try to visit.
They respond to you.
They will. Yeah, because I always go right here and get get gas from this gas station by me. And like some days I'll come in and he'll say, "Oh yeah, your kids were in here the other day," and although they weren't doing anything wrong, it still was nice to know that my kids was in here because maybe I didn't know they went to the gas station. So, it's just good.
I forgot something. A lot of people don't know this, but the 9th Precinct Community Policing section do a lot of mentoring with young men, middle school and high school, and they meet once or twice a week, and at the Freck Building, Ford Recreational Education Center. I think that's where it is, up on 7 Mile, just before you get to Moross, the old Howman Center. And what's beautiful about that is these men and some women sit down and talk to them about the same issues we talk to our kids. When I was working with them, I passed on everything I knew to them, and they're carrying it out in a beautiful way. And so the last month of my time at the Neighborhood Service Organization, I was able to pass on an all-day workshop with these young men who were police officers, and they took that and were able to sustain those relationships with those guys. They used the gym. Not only at the Freck Building, but also at the Matrix Center. And so I would, no matter where you live, I would tell parents to look at a relationship with the community police officers. Community policing is designed just for that purpose, to think outside the box and prevent our children from going into a direction that's going to be detrimental to their well-being.
Yes. And I want to add again, I'd say this again, there is much opportunity, for people to do wonderful things in a community, because there are so many different areas. There are so many avenues in reaching out to our youth and helping our youth. And we just really simply have to do, we all have to do something. We all have to do our part. So again, I just want to, before I ask you how can they find out more about what you do? What's your followings? So is there any information you want to share, even with your job postings? How can they find out more?
They could come to my Facebook page. I guess it's Oh, my name is Frank McGee, McGhee. I guess you could do a Facebook search, and they could be able to take follow me on Facebook. I'd be more than happy to share that information with them. Also, I get a lot of my information comes from either city council members and other individuals I know pretty well. Said, hey, can you put this out, because I'm looking at hiring some people. And I connected with the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation, and they were very helpful. And I also reached out to Nicole Sherrard Freeman. She is over employment for the entire city. And so she posts things up at least like every other month or so. I immediately take that and I put it on my page as fast as I could. And I put a blast out. And once my former students see the blast, they know here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so so she has been a very good resource without advertising it. She puts the information out. She knows I'm following her. I grab it and I put it on my page too. And that way I spread the love and I make it clear that this is a great opportunity for our young parents, or here's a great opportunity to get a decent job that will pay you well, have decent wages. Several of my students now work for Chrysler. Nice. Remember that? They work for Chrysler because of that connection.
That's right.
Yeah. They just never told me about it, but I found out, so where did you get this job? Well, you put that blast out. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
So I try to do that, and I want to do more. I think when I'm finished with grad school, I know I'll be able to put together something. And so pray for me with that.
Where you in school?
Pardon me?
Where do you attend school?
U of M Dearborn. I'm working on my master's in community-based education.
Cool.
And basically, what we're talking about right now is what occurs in community-based education settings. So when you look at whether it's a community center or school or an after-school program, a lot of information that I was able to pass on to my students and their parents enabled them to overcome those challenges. We are an instrument for that. And so sometimes, even if you have to sit down and have lunch with them, they'll listen because they know that you're taking them to hopefully to another level.
That's right.
Parents want that kind of information. They want their relatives to get support. I had a community of individuals who were from the Hmong community, and they definitely appreciated that help because I was able to pass on information and food during the holidays. A lot of people were going through some tough times, especially during the last 4 years, and it got worse with this pandemic. Yeah. So we have to make sure we have to work in support of our people getting employment and addressing the issue around criminal justice. And we have to make sure that we just don't. I mean, when you're accused of messing up the voting system because of where you vote at and who you represent, you can see what's happening, and we have to remain vigilant. No matter what, we have to remain vigilant and teach our youth about what's happening right in front of us. Charlottesville back in 2017 woke everybody up. It started to wake people up. Yeah. But what happened earlier this year, all our Black men getting killed at the hands of some law enforcement individuals, I work with them, I support them, but there's some folks who don't need to be on that street patrolling those cars. And I can say that. That's why it's important that we do what we can to make sure we go to those meetings and or make sure we get those resources so we can help our fellow man.
That's right. Yes. And so definitely continue community, exposing your kids, making connections. And I see, hey, Calvin chimed in. I highlighted your name, Calvin, because one of the parents was asking about mentorship programs, and Mr. McGee was giving a lot of information on how parents can find mentorship program. So I mentioned Calvin Mann does a lot with the youth as well, and just wanted to give him a shout out, as well as Otis Bellinger. He does a lot with the young men. And I just appreciate Mr. McGee, all that you have done for not just the young men, but young men and young women. But we know we have a couple of young men, some of our, I don't want to say our faves, but but some
all
guys.
of them are faves. No, I'll be like, hey, babe, they like, you said that to somebody else. I said, well, you're my fave too.
I've been bust out plenty of time, like, oh, okay, I'm your favorite too. Like, yeah, of course. But it's just really appreciated to have people have that passion, to and I know that your passion is real, because again, that question is a reflector for you when he asked you about your relationship with your dad. So I thank God.
Yeah, that was powerful.
For that person that interviewed you that day. So do you have any final thoughts of inspiration for our champion viewers?
They're amazing, and it's so good that they step up to get every tidbit you could, because you basically can change your life. And I'll give you an example. You could be walking in a grocery store, and you see a young boy. He might be about 7 or 8 years old. He's with his mom. He's shopping. He's looking to see what's going on. But if you just walk by and just say, "Hey, young man, you're doing a great job by supporting your mom," and he's looking at you, the simple discussion or conversation with them really can make their day. And when they get in the car, "Mom, that man talked to me." Mm-hmm. He was stunned. He'll be stunned by that because of the fact that someone older than him looked down and said, "Look, you got something going on. I like what you're doing." Or when they put back food on when their mother asked them to, or help load the groceries, or even pump gas. Mm-hmm. You represent the community. You can say something. The parents will appreciate that. And it underscores what they're trying to do as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those little positive reinforcement and the accolades that we can offer our young children, not young children, but our children overall, like you said, just in passing, it does mean a lot to them. Because it helps change their perspective.
A step further, I even think with grown-ups, I mean, just building a better community, a better world, say something nice. I saw the Dave Chappelle when he did the was it on Netflix? No, Saturday Night Live.
That monologue was good, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Oh my God, he covers so much. And I really love when he said that to do an act of kindness for a Black person, but you got to make sure that the person doesn't deserve it, and for it to really count. But I like when he said that, because even us as adults, like sometimes, and even how we mentor our kids or how we encourage them, sometimes we know that just saying something can make somebody feel better, and we may not feel that they deserve it. But sometimes those things just have to be said. So I just had to point that out. I thought
I like that, because we always got to support each other. I was reflecting earlier today how we just need to be more supportive and more loving towards each other, instead of more judgmental, and holding people to their, different expectations. And we just approach things with love, with flourish.
Fear.
It's a powerful statement when you could be a person who was always ostracized, laughed at, or whatever, and you brighten their day. And the way they think about themselves, when you are always speaking positively about them, no matter where, it never changes. That they will appreciate that for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. I agree. So we would like to take this time to thank all of our viewers today for tuning in. And of course, thank you, Mr. McGee, for spending your evening with Mommy Talk. We definitely appreciate you. You dropped a lot of knowledge, a lot of jewels, and gave us a plethora of information. We definitely appreciate you. As always, we appreciate your support, our viewers. Be safe, wear your mask, use your hand sanitizer, get your gloves out. And remember to practice effective social distancing. It is the holiday season. Be aware of your surrounding and make sure that you're safe. Until next time, see you all later.
Take care, everybody.